And we are back with our top 16. And I was looking through it. I'm not sure if you guys have had a chance to look through it just yet, but it is a fantastic top 16 here today. There are so many very, very strong players here who've made it all the way through. So many well-known names as well. We have OE, we have Ghost the Driver, we have Gigas, Annie Desu, Dartil. It's stacked, basically. It is pretty stacked for a top 16.
Yeah, as you said, we have a Minasia versus Annie Desu, for example, for a match. We have a Gigas versus Painus. We have a Ghost the Driver versus Milk. Kobachi made it in. It's absolutely stacked.
Yeah, Kobachi Thomas versus What Am I, Cheezer Dude versus Black Gaga. And our first match I think we're going to be showing you guys on stream today is Minasia versus Annie here in the top 16. We saw both of these guys a little bit earlier playing. On Annie's side, we saw the end of one of his matches just a little bit there with the Hexcore Foundry. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not we still see the Hexcore Foundry, because I kind of forgot to change the rule set a little bit from the last tournament. So and I wasn't going to change it, so they could change their decks between Swiss and Top Cut. And that's completely on me.
With it.
I feel like a lot of players would have just stuck with their lists, to be honest.
Yeah, probably. So we've got a go hard out of both players, and then on the side of Minasia, of course, we've got that Tom Raka sticking with that one, as well as the Riven Darius Freljord Overwhelm. Then on the side of Annie Desu, we are rounding it out with Scouts, and of course that Teemo Zoe Foundry deck.
Scouts should be pretty interesting. I don't know if he sticks with that, but his lineup is looking pretty aggressive. So even though some people can play Go Hard a bit slower, he has a pretty aggressive Go Hard list, obviously playing 2 elites and only 1 Gangplank, playing the Black Market Merchant in there as well. The Zoe Teemo list is also, I would say, aggressive. The games are usually ending pretty early on. It just seems a bit later because both players at that point have been deep into their decks if those Hexcore Foundries have been found. And then obviously Scouts is just pure aggression.
You banned the Hexcore Foundry list. Just because of
this isn't like
you're too
full Scouts. This is like MF Garen. We've got Radiant Guardians in there. We've got like a Tiana Crown Guard.
It's a bit slower, yeah.
Concerted Strikes, even. It's definitely one of those slower kind of Scout decks.
But again, the question I was mentioning is: do we ban the Hexcore Teemo Zoe list? Is there a line? Because if you look at it this way, you could say, okay, well, Annie just bans the Riven Darius, right? Potentially.
Yeah, I don't think either of those lists are beating the Teemo Zoe, either the Go Hard or the Tom Raka.
So Annie banned Tom Raka.
Yeah, I feel like Tom Raka is a good ban. It's pretty good against Scouts. It's pretty good against Go Hard. I think even against Zoe Teemo it has some chance. And I mean, Noxus Freljord and Shadow Arts Bridgewater, especially Go Hard, I think has a pretty good matchup into this Hexcore Foundry deck, because you would very much like to draw extra cards in that deck. Although it becomes a bit awkward because you can't really use your own draw cards. I don't know. I would imagine we might see this Hexcore Foundry deck banned. Although I wouldn't be surprised to see just Minasia trying to overrun it with his own Go Hard deck and with his Ash Noxus deck.
Yeah, also just to note, the Go Hard from Annie's side was the ban, I think. So he doesn't have that available to him, so he's only got the Scouts plus the Teemo Zoe list.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. So yes, Teemo Zoe was left there because, I mean, maybe Minasia thinks, hey, I play Go Hard, maybe if I get the matchup, maybe I just get Pack Your Bags into Pack Your Bags into Pack Your Bags against this Hexcore Foundry deck. And this Ashley Johnny deck, as we mentioned, is pretty good into the Scouts, although today we've been kind of seeing it lose to the Scouts deck. So let's see if it's going to be different this time.
I mean, it's a slower Scouts, remember? So that's something we need to also consideration. It's got Radiant Guardians. So that's going to be pretty helpful into Go Hard and also to the Riven Darius. If you can get one of those Radiant Guardians to stick down, which is a lot easier if you have multiple units with Challenger to get something to die with like the Plaza on the board to get a 4/5 Radiant Guardian down.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was on the wrong impression that Minasia was actually playing Ash Riven, but yeah, Riven Darius, okay.
Yeah. It's Riven
that's
Darius.
An entirely different matchup. I think that's even better into the Hexcore Foundry deck almost, because you just play your units on curve.
And you just hit them and they can't do anything. Like, so
yeah, you're very okay with an Hexcore Foundry on the board.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I felt like the Teemo was the ban, right? That was my view over the Go Hard, because the Teemo deck does pretty. I mean, if I was Annie, I wouldn't be too worried playing a Teemo Zoe into Soraka Tom, right? You have all the time in the world to potentially just fill their deck with mushrooms as they draw their own. They have draw as well in their deck. You play Hexcore Foundries and they're just drawing and drawing and drawing, and you're gonna overfill their hand quite quickly.
Yeah, that is true, but your scouts just have an abysmal matchup into that, and I think your own Go Hard deck also has a really bad matchup. So if you ban that, and then by some reason Asia actually just bans your Hexcore Foundry deck, I don't know if that's too good for you.
You are running 3 Cythrias and 2 Tianas in your scouts list.
Okay, true. That is pretty good against this Tom Rocket deck, because they don't have really a ton of fearsome blockers. First matchup we are going to see, though, is going to be this Noxus Freyard Overwhelm deck up against the Grand Plaza deck. How do you see that matchup? Okay, we haven't discussed this matchup at all. I feel like this could be really good for the scouts, because they are usually faster, and they might be able just to get the win by overwhelming this Overwhelm deck.
I mean, I would imagine that Minasia brought this in because, for the most part, the Scouts players don't want to be playing things before the Grand Plaza comes down, so you do sort of get those first 3 turns to just wail on them as much as you want to, and set up a wide enough board, hopefully, that the Scouts player isn't going to be able to come back into it. But with Annie having the attack token on evens, does mean we're going to get a Grizzled Ranger immediately after the Plaza comes down, be able to pick apart more of the board than Minasia really wants him to.
Yeah, to point out also on top of this, Annie's list is slightly different. He's running the Double Trouble version, so on turn 3 he can, if he does float the first 2 turns, play Plaza into Double Trouble to generate 2 1-drops with the +1/+1.
Or he could hard brick like this.
I mean, he 100% goes, he has to go and just take the damage this turn, which is a bit brutal, but you do get a good trade at least with the Grizzled Ranger. But going down to 9 this early is not ideal.
Yeah, especially because we always have the threat here that the Overwhelm units are just going to be supported by something. Oh, never mind. I was just about to say that they obviously are supported by stun, but nothing like that in the deck of Minasia right here.
Yeah, Annie kind of has to do these trades, even if Minasia just keeps hitting pass.
It's really just a matter of, is Annie going to be able to get down this Radiant Guardian in a timely fashion? You know, and when it comes down, is it going to be enough? With the sharp sight and the fact that you have, I mean, having 2 Radiant Guardians is great, but the idea that you would actually be able to get 2 tough lifesteal Radiant Guardians down in the same game with this hand is just absolute malarkey. I don't, unless you can find a Blinding Assault off the top, I think you're getting one of these maximum.
Yeah, I was about to say he doesn't run any Blinding Assaults in the deck, which his only option for spell generated units is Double Trouble, which is I'm not a big. I feel like you need to have. I actually really feel like you need to have Blinding Assault in this version of the list, so you can have more ways of guaranteeing Radiant Guardian actually getting that proc on 5, because that's what you really want. Because it's super tough, I think, to get the Radiant Guardian level up now. You have to like sacrifice a unit, then drop it, and you're not getting the heal that turn. You then have to wait another turn before you can get the Radiant Guardian heal.
Yeah, and this open attack by Minasia was kind of sus, because this is the Radiant Guardian turn, and he did not really respect it. Normally, if you are going into Radiant Guardian turn, you want to develop like something, especially like this Kato, you would have liked to develop.
Yeah, Kato would have been crazy here to develop, and I completely agree. I mean, you go as wide as you can against scouts. The most they can do is just play units, right? Or single combat. Actually, there's concerted as well in Annie's version.
Worth noting as well, there are no Noxian Fervors in this list out of Annie, so we're not going to have the opportunity to try and dodge this lifesteal.
Minas, yeah, he doesn't have it. He's only got Battle Fury, Elixirs, Troll Chant, and a single copies of, and even Weapon Silt.
Yeah, I was thinking he would be going for like a combat trick line, because he was going for the open attack, but he did not end up doing that. Browser's Bond, Weapon Hilt could have been lethal there. Probably doesn't have these cards in hand, so I'm interested to see what his hand is. He does have Ancient Yeti, Captain Farron. Obviously this Radiant Guardian is going to be able to heal Annie up, but once this Farron drops, this game could turn around again, because this Farron is providing 12 HP damage, roughly, with the axes if he uses them all, and then itself is just an 8/8 body that can be buffed up by Weapon Hilt, by Battle Fury, and Brother's Bond.
Yeah, what I find a bit odd is I really do think Annie had to put Blinding Assaults into this list to more guarantee the Radiant Guardian game plan. He was lucky that he managed to get it this turn, but I feel like a lot of the time you don't get Radiant Guardian until turn 7 or 8 later on, when you can play a challenger unit, attack in, and then get it, unless your opponent doesn't respect it, like we saw this time, and just open attacks.
All right, so Annie going to go for these attacks. That's going to take that. That's going to take the Omen Hawk so that it cannot get out in front of the Radiant Guardian and deny the lifesteal thanks to that Misfortune ability. So Minasia, things looking a little bit rough. We do have a lot of top end, as you had mentioned, IceT, but depending on how much value this Radiant Guardian can get, and because our Brightsteel Protector is living, we might actually be able to get down a second Radiant Guardian on the following turn if we can use that as a blocker. And at 9 HP, I don't think that Annie's really in danger of dying on the following turn while he still has this living Radiant Guardian.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be turn 7. There are no real power plays that can come down on turn 7 from Minasia. I mean, there's no Farron. Maybe a couple of Ancient Yetis if they had
Battle Fury.
But ooh, okay.
Battle Fury on whatever Kato buffs.
If this Kato survives, because Annie is really thinking about killing that.
Yeah, it depends on that as well, because I think the Radiant Guardian blocking the Kato should let Annie live in that case. But instead, we're going to go for the kill on the Kato.
I mean, there's only...
I think this is correct play.
There's Troll Chance and 1 Elixir.
Yeah.
Which we saw.
The Elixir was already played, so it was just a Troll Chance. And I think if he had Troll Chance, he would have played Troll Chance anyways. So yeah, this is looking pretty rough for Minasia. He can't develop another Kato this turn because that would mean another Battle Fury wouldn't be available.
It would.
He wouldn't have had 8 spell mana. Oh, that's a Darius.
Okay. That's almost just as good.
Yeah, you need. You mean you got Weapon Hilts in the deck, Brothers Bonds? There's a few options here.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, he does not play a single copy of Decisive Maneuver. So we don't have like this new combat trick that you usually play to get lethal. This would get lethal at this point, but not a single copy in the deck. And like this, he actually doesn't push any damage.
Yeah, and we're just going to follow that up with another Radiant Guardian. Not going to be able to take advantage of the challenge on this turn, but there is a good chance that we can actually get, you know, multiple attacks off with this Radiant Guardian next turn when we go for this Tiana Crown Guard play.
Ooh, and again, no development from Minasia before the attack. The Kato comes down afterwards, and that leaves this Kato again up to just be challenged. I don't know if I like this again against the Grand Plaza deck. You giving them the favorable traits right now.
I mean, this is looking very, very close. Farron will be able to contest the Tiana as well. Actually, 1 HP, it will die because of the +1/+1 on the Plaza, right?
It does make it more awkward for Annie to be able to get off the double Radiant Guardian lifesteal on this turn, though. Yeah, he doesn't also have a great answer for the just Decimate still through the Overwhelm on the next turn. So Overwhelm attack plus 2 Decimates should just be enough, even through Radiant Guardian, I think.
Well, no, is there consideration to just pull Farron and then the Radiant Guardian? Probably not.
I mean, Radiant... You can't get down Tiana and have the Radiant Guardian get off an attack this turn because it dies to Darius, Farron, and Kato.
Yeah, you would have to invest Sharp Side, which is not really great.
Yeah, it takes the Tiana off the table for the turn.
Yeah, Tiana making work of this Farron. Radiant Guardian now attacking because only Kato can kill it, and you're fine with...
Well, Radiant might not get the lifesteal off because Kato can block it and die to the Misfortune ability.
So yeah, I don't think Minasia would invest a Troll Chant here.
It really depends on how Minasia wants to play this one out. You know, do we feel like we need Kato for the following turn, or is it more important to actually deny the Radiant Guardian?
Well, you block with the 3/2, right? And just let it... no, it doesn't work,
Well,
right?
if you block with Kato, yeah, they don't get the lifesteal.
Yeah.
Denying for lifesteal would be great, but
The problem
you
is you don't
can't just
have
kill your opponent right now with
you don't have
just
enough
decimate.
damage, right? Next turn, 2 decimates won't be enough. You're on 9. Like Annie's on 9. That's just 1 off.
Yeah, you would need to find a way for this 3/2 to die and him not getting any heal from his Radiant Guardian. So I like Annie actually not attacking with the Misfortune and the 3/2 because that would have actually enabled Minasia to block with his 3/2, get Annie to 8 HP, Ghost block the Radiant Guardian. But Annie a bit too clever for that, so that doesn't happen. Now Minasia needs to find a way to actually finish this game because next turn it looks like Annie is going to finish the game.
I don't think this is enough damage, right? Radiant Guardian just blocks here. Sharp Sight single combat can even get a double trade, potentially, and heal up for 12, right? Right up to full. I think Annie's got this.
Yeah, this looks pretty much in the bag for Annie, especially the single combat pickup. Anything that could be threatening can obviously be just removed by that card. I don't know what you want to do if you want to come back here. I'm having a look at this Riven Darius list, and there isn't really anything that tells me that Minasia will be able to come back. I don't even think a Battle Fury is going to do it because, again, single combat can just come down on the Tiana and whatever gets buffed by that Battle Fury.
Yeah, I think that single combat top deck from Annie did just kind of sign, seal, deliver this one, lock it all away.
There's nothing to stop it, right? There's only troll chance and more attack damage, right?
Yeah, it's probably not going to be enough. So a 6-mana Ancient Yeti is not really how you wanted to start off the turn. That is a large commitment for a rather inefficient body.
Yeah, it's basically it's worse than the Yeti that comes off Trapper, right? By a long way. It's just a 1-mana 5/5, the superior version. Ancient Yeti takes what, 7 turns to get to that point in your hand.
Yeah, but it does have Overwhelm, which is pretty nice, and it can be 0 mana if you are patient. But patient is not really what you want to be if you are playing a pure Overwhelm deck. So obviously 6 mana here, pretty stark investment, pretty harsh investment. I don't think this is gonna be able to do anything this turn. I don't think Minasia is gonna be able to take the win back here because he does not have one of these combat tricks. He does not run a single copy of Decisive Maneuver, so there is nothing that can just out of nowhere surprise your opponent and just get you to lethal.
And Annie might even be considering something like a single combat this turn just to make sure that you get that lifesteal off while your opponent has absolutely no interaction for it. Go in for the attack and just sort of clean things up from there. These decimates are all but useless in Minasia's hand. We really just needed more units and more ways around the Radiant Guardian. So this sort of more late game anti-aggro scouts list for Annie, even with a really slow start, looks like it has been enough to actually pick things back up here. Gonna now go up to, I think, 12 life when all is said and done.
Yeah, and this also not only guarantees him a kill and a heal, it also just guarantees him lethal on the open attack. He just has enough units plus the MF trigger to just push it through and just end the game right here.
Yeah, this MF's gonna level here, right?
Yeah, even if it doesn't level, it's just more than lethal. I think Minasia would have to block the Sifria and the Garen, and there is still 10 damage coming through, 11 damage with the MF trigger, but MF obviously leveled, so it's more than... I think it's now...
too much.
Too much. Way too much, yeah. I don't want to do the math. We just call it too much.
Yeah, Battle Fury.
It's a top deck. I think the Battle Fury was just top deck, so...
I mean, it still wasn't enough.
Yeah, still wasn't enough. We said, like, even if he had the Battle Fury last turn, the single combat would have just been able to remove any unit that this Battle Fury went on. So, unable to get the win here with the Overwhelm deck. Annie, great performance with this Grand Plaza deck, and now he has to win with his Hexcore Foundry deck, which we've seen him have a pretty convincing performance before, just in the last Swiss round. Let's see if he can stand against the might of Overwhelm and go hard.
I feel that this should be a slightly more favored matchup for the Overwhelm deck. There's nowhere near as much, there's no healing, I think, in the deck at all, and you can just keep hitting straight through most of their units. There is the option. Oh, this is a pretty good starting hand for Annie. Spacey Sketcher plus Starry Scamp. That's just a pretty good turn 1 development.
Yeah, developing 3 power on turn 1. Oh, so far I don't see a card he wants to discard though. Okay. What
There's
do you
nothing.
discard here?
Nothing. I think you just play Zoe and Teemo and just start going.
Yeah,
they have nothing to stop the elusive seeing through.
Yeah, if you had to pick something, it'd probably be the Puff Cap Peddler. I think that is this card that's sort of least likely to get its perceived value in a matchup like this. Your opponent's not going to be drawing a lot of cards. I don't think you even necessarily want to run out the Foundries because their deck is as pretty aggressively costed as yours is.
Yeah, I think it's the Puff Cap Peddlers are pretty much good for blocking Iron Ballistas and Ruthless Raiders, right? That's like the only reason you want to keep them.
Now you have a great discard target, obviously, 2-mana spell. Oh, the Serpent, the Trickster, and Equinox. Equinox is really good against Overwhelm, obviously, because you can just silence the biggest Overwhelm unit. You can silence a Farron. You can silence anything, really, that is not Riven and Darius. But the Trickster is also a card that grants you more elusive damage. And if you are in for a race, this might be the pick.
Well, considering you're probably going to play Puff Cap next turn, I actually don't mind Serpent. It just fills out your curve a bit nicer. And you get a blocker for the Ruthless Raider if you need it.
Serpent, obviously, probably not challenging anything too big, but can also, as you said, block the Ruthless Raider, can pull the Spider, can pull any Fearsomes.
So I actually
look at any sport.
Like the way that Zoe's going to play out in a matchup like this. There have been so many times where just being able to burst speed invoke a Crescent Strike is something that your opponent is not going to be able to play around, right? And because Minasia is going to have to go for developmental attacks, I think that these open attacks are sort of what lost him the game last time around. Just paying a little bit too much respect to the kind of development that any hand could have. This one, not so much. Runeforger really wouldn't have impacted the combat here too much, but being able to play out those Overwhelm units, for example, going to have the attack token on 5. You would love to throw down a Kato and then buff up one of these units. That's not going to work if there's a Crescent Strike coming out of Annie.
Chum Womp's also a fantastic unit to just block some of the Overwhelm damage. Can deal with Kato as well, outside of combat tricks.
Yeah, there are only 8 cards in the pool for what Zoe's going to be invoking, and with Crescent Strike and Equinox being so high power against everything that Minasia is able to play, I gotta say, as long as the Zoe's sticking around, I'm liking Annie's chances.
Yeah, and I mean, the board Annie was able to develop at just 3 mana was absolutely massive. Like, even at 2 mana, he was able to play a 2/2, had two 1/1s on board, was able to develop a Spacey Sketcher and a Serpent. Absolutely insane. But Minasia here for 4 mana gets down a 5/5 Overwhelm Yeti.
Which means you have to see Chum Wump, right? Because then next turn you at least have Pale for the trade, so you can remove it potentially, and then or you can do Mushroom, or yeah, it depends on how much Minasia develops, right? Teemo is close to leveling though, but the problem is there's no draw engine happening, and oh yeah, ouch. That's a. Do we invoke and look for it?
Yeah, are we just going for the Crescent Strike? That is the question. Could be a good option because I don't know what else you are doing this turn. You probably are playing Pair Cascade, but those two 5/5 Overwhelms look absolutely scary.
Looks like Annie's currently lining up how he wants all of these blocks to play out.
I think you look for Crescent. If you get it, you're in a good spot.
Question is, what do you pick if you don't get it? Equinox could also be a good card because you can take away Overwhelm. So even if you get that, gets neither.
None of them.
Gets a 3/3 blocker here.
Yeah, that's not ideal. Messenger to start searching through the deck, potentially, I think is your line. Your hand is pretty low value.
Yeah, it's either that or I don't hate the idea of Serpent, because if you are going for a double block onto these Yetis, you will soften one of them up into Serpent range, but instead you're going to throw down this 2/2, get this Messenger, and like you guys had mentioned, sort of cycle through the deck, because Annie's running pretty low on cards, and I don't think this deck is really built to take advantage of a leveled Zoe like some of the other ones are.
Yeah, you have to commit one of those Pales, right? You can't leave these Yetis up. But the problem is you get really blown out by like a Troll Chant. by trying to do that.
Yeah, Trojan has to be consideration. There are 3 in the deck, and it is kind of scary once you see a full attack like this, because that means Minasia can get more than one good trade if you do commit the Pair Cascade here. And I feel like Minasia attacking with all of his units, it kind of suggests that he has Trojan. So I kind of like Annie just saying, okay, let's see what you do first, and then I'm gonna invest the Pair Cascade. And he was right. There's a troll chain, and that means that Minasia will only get 1 good trade, and Annie is fine to just keep the Pair Cascade in his hands. I like the read going on here from Annie, and he has to make a couple of good reads to win this game, because he is on the back foot. Though he has 2 elusive units to hit the Nexus again, he can level Teemo this turn.
The question is, does he play double mushroom or does he rummage? Even just rummaging should level up Teemo enough, though, so maybe he goes for the rummage.
Yep. He can always level Teemo, yeah.
That you really want to all in on the mushroom plan against an opponent who really isn't going to be drawing that many cards, who you don't want to give additional cards to, and just putting your opponent sort of at this 1 damage per turn threshold with the Teemo level hitting the Nexus feels like an okay enough spot.
Yeah, 50 mushrooms in the deck right now. Messenger, gonna draw my Hexcore Foundry, which is in this matchup maybe not the best card. I mean, the cards in Minasia's deck are super valuable to him, and he doesn't have any draws, so he would actually just welcome the Hexcore Foundry with open arms.
Yeah, I was about
also,
to
he has
say,
like a bunch of low drops.
His hand is looking a little bit dire as well. He's only got 3 cards left, so that additional draw would have just been lovely. It's how I felt when I'm playing Scouts into like this one of these lists. I'm like, oh great, I have tons of cards now. I have a choice of what I want to do for once in a Scouts list instead of just playing out my curve. This is new. Choice.
And he actually attacking with the Puffka Paddler here. Has the Pair Cascade to trade away the Kato, which would provide 3 more damage to one of these Overwhelm units. Probably not the most important card from Nature right now, because his units do already have Overwhelm, but it's a 3 attack buff, which is always nice, especially if your opponent's already on 10. But next turn, I have the fear. I am afraid of a Darius.
All right, so we are going to go for this just to push that additional 1 damage on the Zoe level, as well as get a oh man, behold the infinite rather than the star chart.
And Behold the Infinite is nice because it can potentially get you cards like Comet, like Obliterate.
That's a lot of puff caps going in as well.
Yeah, we have potentially almost 80 puff caps in the deck of Minasia.
And then we have
in addition to pushing 4 damage this turn.
This is honestly looking super close. Do we just do we behold this turn to just increase the odds of more mushrooms? Golden Sister.
Hive Steal. It's so important. Also, it provides you with another elusive unit, and I feel like if Minasia doesn't win next turn, this looks pretty good for Annie, because he has 2 more turns. That
everything gives lifesteal.
Be lethal,
right? Does everything get lifesteal?
Yeah, everything would get lifesteal, but if Minasia just opens or open attacks into a Battle Fury, there's nothing Annie can do about that. But instead we get the Darius, so now everything's going to get lifesteal, but is that going to be enough? The HP on the units is pretty low.
Yeah, the Darius just pushing 10 damage unblocked, but even if he's blocked...
you get 2 4/3s,
2/2
so you heal for 8.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
How does the ordering work? No, it's the other way around. You don't get the lifesteal on the elusive.
But everything has lifesteal now. Let's see. Trojan would obviously be also insane here, or Brothers Bond. He has 2 mana open. Let's see if Minasia can find the combat spell, the combat trick to get him to win here. If he doesn't win this, then obviously Annie wins, just straight out. This Zoe is leveled, and whenever Zoe is leveled, we know that the next attack turn is probably going to be lethal for whoever has to level Zoe on board. Question is, will we get to that next turn?
He takes 6 from Darius. He takes 2 from the Yeti, right? And then another 3 or whatever. Yeah, this is That's actually a little bit awkward because he's only got a Puffcat pedal as a fearsome blocker. Really, you don't think he wants to throw that over there?
I mean, he could throw out the Silver Sister since it doesn't have lifesteal anyway.
Yeah, probably correct.
Wait, what's the spider doing here, guys? I don't understand this play.
It fell out of Minasia's hand.
Okay, just a teeny tiny spider fell out of his hand. Doesn't really do anything here. And let's see if Annie can survive here. I'm too lazy to do the math, but if he can, this game is pretty much over. I don't think you attack the spider.
I think Annie already ran the math and decided that the Golden Sister was going to be enough to save him.
Yeah, I mean, the spider attack doesn't do anything. That's why I'm so surprised that he even played the spider. Because the Silver Sisters or anything could just block it.
It has life still. Like, look.
Oh, it was hiding.
Sometimes you don't want to reveal your life still until it's time.
It takes no damage.
Probably a shame.
Literally just takes no damage. Him. That's actually kind of hilarious. I don't think you go down to 4. I think you just I think this is nice.
Yeah, and he is pretty confident that he will still be able to get lethal next turn, just because he pushes 6 damage. Teemo just doubles the shrooms again to 150 almost.
Yeah, that's quite a bit, and even has the Veteran Investigator to make Minasia draw another card.
So you can give everything elusive again.
Yeah, Trickster is so good here.
That's just gonna be lethal.
Only 1 mushroom.
That's a bit underwhelming because there are more than 70 mushrooms in Minasia's deck, but I think if you're Annie, you're okay with that because you do have the Teemo, so you are just going to be able to double the mushroom count again.
And it looks like that's going to be the GG out of Annie Desu. I can't imagine Minasia has anything to say about this. We're going to get 1 spell, but it's just a battle
again.
Again, and Annie Desu is going to be moving on to the top 8.
Yeah, that's the second time Minasia top decking the Battle Fury, just a bit too late.
Gonna just go for the Veteran Investigator to see how much damage we can push through on the shrooms. Gonna get 4 this time.
Oh, is there a way? Is there like a play where he just attacks with the Teemo for the ultimate BM lethal?
No, because there are the odds where they just don't draw any shrooms. Potentially, you lose. I don't think you ever take that risk.
No, and he doesn't, and he just takes a quick 2-0 actually, moving forward now in the top 8 already.
Yeah, really, really well played from Annie. That deck, not gonna lie, I wasn't too confident on it when I saw the list, but it's been doing really well for him.
Yeah, so far, I mean...
Surprised that the leveled Zoe actually had such a big impact on the outcome of the game. Being able to get a Golden Sisters and give lifesteal to the entire board seems sort of pivotal in Annie's success in that one.
Oh, for sure. I think that's he would have lost if he didn't manage to get the Golden Sister. It's all there.
Yeah, that was a high roll, but I mean, maybe not a high roll, was just a good roll. And I feel like this deck is really good against these kind of decks that don't have removal. So he was playing up against this Overwhelm deck, which doesn't want any removal at all. And he had Zoe basically from turn 2 from turn 2. And it's just insane. She just stayed on the board, was attacking. He wasn't throwing it in. He was super conservative with his blocks, which I really like. Did some really smart and heads-up plays. And yeah, just leveled the Zoe. And we see once Zoe leveled, it's basically like other champion levels we've seen before. Once Zoe's leveled, the game is just over.
I want to hear you say what you were going to say. Tell me that Zoe leveling is the same as Aurelion Soul leveling. I could hear it in the back of your throat. I want to hear you say the words.
Okay. Zoe leveling is like Aurelion Soul and Twisted Fate leveling. Game is just over.